Hi.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome.
I'm at a friend's house in Angels Camp. For all these Zoom meetings, I just left the CHIP meeting.
Yeah.
So did Nicole bring you over something to give to David for me?
No, I know
Yeah.
Nicole gave something to David.
Oh, he did. Okay, because he has
So-
to bring it to me tomorrow, because that's why I was coming over today, was to get that large check that had previously gotten lost in the mail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a TOT check for the Business Association, and it was $12,000, and it got lost in the mail.
Oh, well.
So I told them, please don't mail it again. I'll pick it up for them.
Yeah. Is it for like the CSA or something like that, or?
Yeah, so CSA gets the portion of TOT from Alpine County for Bear Valley, and then the CSA, after a request from the Business Association, gives it to the Business Association to use for economic development. And this year it was $12,000, and normally we get the check sometime in October, November, and it got lost in the mail. Yeah, so anyway, so they're waiting for it.
That's always fun. I'm just gonna shut the door real quick.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, thank you. Are you all good, Kimra? Okay.
Yeah, so the CEQA thing, we had a CEQA done, and we have a prescription there, but it was a really poorly done CEQA. It took very long, and it doesn't allow for large trees, only small diameter trees.
And how long ago is the CEQA done?
Like 3 years ago.
Because I'm wondering, hey guys, I'm wondering if the regs might have changed since 3 years ago, considering the catastrophic wildfire mitigation risk.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I can get a hold of Gary Whitson with CAL FIRE and ask, but I don't think so, because they wouldn't let him change what he was doing on the properties this last year, up through December. He was only allowed to do, I think it was between 12 and 18-inch DBH. Yeah. And, and that's not very big.
Yeah.
And we're talking about large trees.
Yeah, we're talking like 24-inch plus DBH, right?
Yeah, and bigger. Yeah. So I think, so I think that's going to be a problem. So I'll have to talk to Bill. I was going to give him a couple of days since he can't talk. He lost his voice because of that infection he has. And he just got over COVID. He had it like for over a month. Ooh. So anyway, I'm just giving him a couple of days, and then I'll give him a call and we can talk it out. But yeah.
It's funny, I got the computer like on the end of the table, so I got to lean in and let people in. So not trying to show you the inside of my nostrils, I promise.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way, where I'm sitting at this big table. I can't get close enough.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of, it sounds like maybe we might want to postpone the meeting next week and then try to connect dots on the 21st when I'm out there.
Yeah, and so we just have to figure out how we're going to get together, because 3 of us will be there and 1 of them won't. And how do we do that?
We might just be able to like just get them on speakerphone.
Okay, from the library, because we can all meet in the library, but I've never set up a Zoom there, but I could go in there and try to figure it out, on the big TV.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just one person that's not there, I mean, we could, I would just think, pull out an iPhone, and as long as we have good reception, we can just put them on speakerphone and
Okay,
conduct the meeting in a quiet place. I mean, unless you think that there would be, a benefit to having him there. I mean, his face.
oh, yeah, it just, so we can see, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your trip over. I hope the weather's good.
Me too. I hope we get a nice storm right before.
Yeah.
And then I can go up there and maybe ski a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe Bear Valley is gonna stay open a little longer too. I haven't heard. I mean, they've got things up through the 17th of April, which is, I believe, Easter,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. Hopefully they have an Easter egg hunt on the 17th up there.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully, weather conditions permitting, they'll be open till then.
Okay. Just a heads up for you guys, completely support if you want to wear a mask, not required in non-healthcare community facilities.
Okay.
So they're required in HHS and DHS, which is kind of why we moved over to this side of the street. They're not required for community development.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, wow, it's already 1:31. Oh, and then David, did you guys want to just talk real quick about that check and coordinating
I
that?
got it.
Okay. Did you hear that, Terry?
No. Oh, so you got it?
Yeah, Nicole's giving it to me. All right.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Your name on
Thank you.
it. Okay,
And then, is that member Hartnett 1879?
yes.
Okay, and then looks like we
Yeah.
got Tom Sweeney. So I do believe 1, 2, 3. I think we have a quorum.
There's 10 supposed to be.
6. So I think 3 and 3.
Unfortunately, you don't count yet.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, you
You
always
participate,
count.
but you
You
don't vote.
always count, but
Do we have anything to vote on? Everything's discussion is what I saw.
pretty much, yeah, I think everything's really discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Terry, you fine with that?
What?
We don't quite have a quorum,
Yeah.
Well, you're saying.
but we're not gonna vote on it.
We got Frank Gerdeman coming in, so I think he
He
satisfied
makes it.
me.
Yeah,
And then Terry, can you hear, everybody in the back and everything clearly?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, right. Man, we should have just done.
I'm
it.
not in Bear Valley, so I think I'm in Angels Camp and I hear better for some reason. I guess the reception's better here.
All right, well, I think
Okay,
it's up to you, Chair.
all right, it is 1:32. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. JT, do you want to call roll?
I will. Chair DeForest.
Aye.
Soon to be member Jang.
Here.
Member Rawson.
Here.
Member Griffith.
Present.
Member Woodrow.
Here,
Member Gerdeman.
Here.
Member Vice Chair Sweeney.
Here.
And Member Hartnett.
Here.
And for the record, we have 2 in attendance staff. We have Deputy Director Community Development Candace Stoll on Zoom, and then myself, Economic Development Director JT Chevalier.
Okay, thank you. Everyone should have in their packets the minutes from our last meeting. If everyone's had a chance to review those, were there any questions, comments, or motions to approve?
3.1 and 3.2 in the minutes. Something looks wrong with those motions. I misunderstood them.
So the 3.1 minutes, Becky just wanted to make sure that I recognized myself in the role. So that was just a general comment. And then member Hartnett nominated vice chair, Tom Sweeney for vice chair.
Did he do it twice?
Oh,
That's
I'm sorry. Yeah, there is a duplication there.
yeah,
That second portion, the member Hartnett down to member Woodrow's second should get removed.
right.
Yeah, both
Was
of
that
those.
what I was not-
Yeah.
Sorry, both of those in 3.1 and 3.2, you're just duplicating what we did up
Yeah,
At the top.
I think what I did was it was the same
People.
nomination, and I mean, not nomination, but first and
Okay.
second.
So first and second.
So I will amend these to reflect the appropriate motions.
Okay, one other typo. Under 6 informational items. Last line, cite Silver Mountain City and Centerville Flat for even locations, I think, event
Ah,
locations.
yep.
And that was all I had.
Do you
This
have
is
any
Fr-
other questions?
No, I was just gonna say, this is Frank. I would say, move to accept as amended.
Griffith seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. Jeff,
How do we want to do this with hybrid? Do we want to do a
If it's
roll
hybrid,
call?
you have to-
Oh, we have to do a roll call. That's right. Okay. Chair DeForest,
Aye.
Member Rawson,
Aye.
Member Griffith,
Aye.
Member Woodrow,
Aye.
Member Girdeman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Aye.
Member Hartnett.
Aye.
Okay, we approved the minutes. We skipped over oral communication, general public comment. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on subjects relating to economic development. I apologize. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, seeing none, we'll keep moving. Item 4, unfinished business. Item 4.1 is discussion and recommendations for proposed economic development and recovery initiatives for the economic development director.
So standing item, anybody want me to add anything to my large checklist? Just a few things.
Well, one thing, I'm not sure if it goes here or not, but I'll throw it out there and you can throw it away if it's no good. In your, call them appendices, but for the supplemental material, could you put in the title of what it's about too? as
Oh,
well as
yeah,
the
instead of
agenda
just
items?
supplemental, like 4.1.8,
Yeah.
1.4. Yeah, okay.
Possible to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Alright.
I had that before. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, what is this?
Don't forget, not everybody just has it just stored up in here. in files. Yeah,
Especially not us.
I'll put the title in.
Thank you, David. Any other items for JT? Item 4.2, emerging industry and technology. David, do you have any Alpine Biomass Collaborative updates?
Yes. Okay. Later this week, let me back up a little bit. As I mentioned before, we've been having some very, very exploratory discussions with Liberty Utilities and the Tahoe Fund, thanks to JT. And we now have a possible developer that'll be joining those conversations. So not to, they're not committed, but they're doing this kind of work elsewhere. And they apparently have investor backing. So we'll see how it goes. But these are exploratory conversations. But at least it's moving in what I hope is the right direction.
That's great. That's great.
Okay, yeah, that's all I have for the biomass. I guess it's not economic development, so that's it.
That's it for that. How about the broadband middle mile update?
Okay. Middle Mile Advisory Committee had a very interesting video conference last month. It got Zoom on. And-
Really bad.
And it was really hilarious. Well, not everybody shares my sense of humor. The first thing that was really funny was the horrified expression on everybody's face when the cameras on. That was better than what the other was, than the obscene stuff.
Dear.
And the other thing was, this committee and this meeting is organized by the California Department of Technology. So,
Not a good look.
That's even better.
Not a good look.
Failure.
so anyways, okay, on to the more serious stuff. Part of Senate Bill 156, he provides technical assistance for each essentially local entity, which in this case is Alpine County, technical assistance of $150,000 a year for technical assistance, because we don't know what we're doing. We need to have the right engineers and so on like that. CPUC just finished their rulemaking on that, and the $150,000 has gone up to $500,000.
500,000.
$500,000. So how that will, over the next couple of months, how that's going to work out, is probably going to come clear. We don't have to do it ourselves. We'll probably combine our money with the money from other people in the what we're calling the Buzz Consortium, broadband consortium, to make sure we get enough money together and work together with the counties that are in that. That's all up in the air, but it's finally the rulemaking has gone through, and I haven't read it yet. I will when I get a copy of it. JT will have his homework. So that's good. The state is ordering this week, I think, 3,000 miles of fiber, plus all of the electrical gizmos that go with it for the middle mile. And they're doing it this early because of the lead time. I think we've all are aware of supply disruptions and how long it takes to get things. And so they're not waiting. They're putting in an order this week, or they may have actually done it last week. And then the other program was in Senate Bill 156, something called Loan Loss Reserve, which meant that if a county or a JPA or could be a private company wanted to get financing to install the middle mile or the last mile, actually, there would be money available to back up that loan or bond from the state. Statewide at $750 million. Unfortunately, we were hoping that that would be done fairly quickly. Now it looks like that's going to be pushed back to 2023.
So that $500,000, that would be used for what, like engineering costs?
Engineering, planning, that sort of thing. And how that will fit in with everything else, I don't think anybody really knows yet, because, for example, Golden State Connect Authority, which is a subsidiary of RCRC, is trying to put together an open access network, institutional open access network for rural counties. The internet service providers such as Frontier, AT&T, and so on like that are not giving up. So there's a lot of money out there. In addition to the $6 billion from the state, there's $65 billion nationwide from the federal government, and buried in other stuff in the federal government was $100 billion or something like that. I can't remember. So everybody's scrambling, wanting to make sure, just like us, that we get what we need. So a lot of people are working on it, and a lot of the people who are working on it are a lot smarter than I am, although some of them have problems with Zoom calls.
And so somehow I'm guessing this segues into the Dig Once policy provided by that you provided from South Tahoe. Okay.
Yeah. So, as we kind of continue the discussions about the middle mile implementation, potential last mile implementation, this was a recommendation from David that we, start to look into the formulation of a Dig Once policy for the county of Alpine. So, this is mainly just an opportunity to generate questions, concerns, and how to properly move forward with the Dig Once policy. So Candace is joining us right now. And, we still have not actually kind of gone down the road of heavy revision and trying to generate a Dig Once policy. But I think what would be great is review this one the city of South Lake Tahoe has done. Candace used to actually work with the city of South Lake Tahoe in their planning and building department. And then I think that maybe we can come back in subsequent meetings and potentially provide some recommendations to community development. on things we would like to see or potential constraints or concerns. Because obviously, you know, there's value in this, but then again, we don't want it to be so constrictive where, you know, we're stunting growth or projects, but mainly just some light reading for you, and happy to answer any questions, but we'll continue to work on this both with EDAC and then the planning commission. Candace, do we have a kind of a timeline as to when we think we might start to kind of chip away at this?
Oh. I would not be able to commit to anything right now. I think we need to involve, obviously, our building official as well as our county engineer in this, and as well as our roads department. So we need to cover some of these different areas of our department, and then we can come back possibly with some recommendations if that would make sense to everybody.
Perfect. Yeah. And then in between, you know, you guys kind of starting to work on this, and right now is we'll look at this in EDAC again next month and maybe provide some feedback, concerns, criticisms, suggestions that then CDA can digest and utilize in the planning and revision process.
JT,
Go ahead.
this is Chris. And this is purely from the water company. When Zach was with the county, the water company and the county had started to work together to put together a set of plans where the water company's pipeline that's in the county's right of way is identified to the county. That has not been completed. The reason I bring this up is I have no idea whether the county has a set of plans from the MPUD for their facilities that are in your right of way. All of this leads back to what I'm reading here on page 1, City of South Lake Tahoe and the City Council policy. If the county doesn't have some sort of documents as to where all of these infrastructure pieces are, it's not going to do you any good to let each of us know what we need to do to provide information to you about our facilities in your right of way.
Yeah, definitely. We will be reaching out to you and we will be reviewing infrastructure. I think we're probably in the first half of the first inning of the baseball game. And I know once we get a little closer, we'll most definitely engage you guys, Chris.
Well, you're not, in some respects, at least with the water company, you're not, you are well past first base. The water company intends to install a pipeline on Hot Springs Road in 2023. And that's going to affect your necessity to notify the water company of what's going on. These things are evolving faster than we're talking about here today.
Okay, I'll make some notes to that effect, and then I will work with our Hot Springs construction crew as well as look through our files and see what we can figure out with regards to that, Chris. And we won't wait for this policy to be in place. We'll do some research prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
So aside from what Chris was mentioning, and this might be a question for Candace, if we were to look at a date and say we would like to have this dig once policy in place, how long would it take us to get there?
I think my concern is to see if this is only a policy or if there's some part of this that needs to fold into our development regulations. And I think that's something that we don't know yet, because obviously if there's parts of this that can be folded into our development regulations, I think in some ways it could be more effective. The policy can be part of the larger picture, but there may be some aspects of this that we want to put into our development regulations. So it's regulatory and there's no chance for not following through on what the board wants to do with this.
Yes, David.
Candace, David Griffith here. That makes perfect sense to me. But I do want to remind everybody that having a dig once policy is a box that needs to be checked before some money gets spent here. So it's not something we want to
Yeah.
leave on the back burner. We do have to get together. We're actually quite lucky about this. We're very simple. We don't have any gas lines. We've had very few roads where there's any underground utilities at the moment. So we've got to get it right. Chris's point is well taken, but we also get to get it done.
Good discussion.
I just have a few questions. So we're sure we want to go ahead with this type of a policy, one. What roads, have we identified what roads this is going to impact? Well, I mean, I just, in my mind, I'm just thinking of Markleyville is a state highway, so if there's nothing there, you can't really enforce anything there. So it would just be Hot Springs, Montgomery, Laramie, in Markleyville. When you go to Woodford's, what does that impact there? Kirkwood, I'm sure that would be, but I'm just thinking, is it even worth going through all of this when we have very little to even?
If we want high-speed broadband, we have no choice.
Okay,
And Caltrans already has a big ones policy. So that takes care of the state, the state highways.
and then my other issue with the whole thing was, when we're talking about like the water company, the PUD over in Bear Valley, do those entities have the money to be able to do scheduled repairs when other things are happening? And how do we deal with that if they don't?
In other jurisdictions, the public works director has a certain amount of discretion. Obviously, for an emergency situations and so on like that, you have to have that. It'd be crazy to, for example, if the water company has a problem they got to deal with right now, it'd be crazy for them to have to go to the board of supervisors. Yeah. It has to be done something, what do you call it, ministerial, where the public works director has some discretion, because it's not just in Alpine County, but some things don't always go according to plan. It happens everywhere.
Yeah, I was just looking at it as, it's like Hot Springs Road. Let's say that that's happening this year and the water company is planning on replacing their pipes in 2023. Well, we've got a problem there.
Yeah.
So how do we make that work? The water company wouldn't be doing it in 2023 if they didn't have to wait for money or whatever. And so they might not be in the position to be able to do it in 2022. So how do we make that go, without having to dig everything up again, so, and then my other thing was, who's going to enforce any of this? Who's the agency to do enforcement?
CDA.
Yeah, community development.
Yeah.
Do I remember correctly that construction on the Hot Springs Road itself is not going to happen until 2025, 2026?
I think from what I've gathered, that's what the timeline's looking like. So I would say, to your point, Ian, if we had case by case, project by project, plan submittals, we could try to work elements of that type of policy in and try to make those recommendations. Like for Hot Springs Bridge, they put in conduit with the bridge replacement. Obviously, we didn't have a dig once policy then, but we tried to stress the importance of.
I can see the benefit of this.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that's
how
what's.
is this gonna?
Yeah, and so that's why
There's
I wanted.
a lot of questions.
Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to bring this to this committee. In addition to, obviously, there's a lot of technical aspects within community development that our building official and Candace are the real pros at. But I think when we take a look at how this might impact community members or businesses or organizations like MPED or the water company, I think that's feedback that we need to take into account and understand, in addition to the technical challenges or the kind of legalese that we put into this.
It's just gonna have to be, I think we're gonna have to be flexible and
Yeah.
not so rigid that
Yeah.
we're trying to make this square peg fit into the round hole.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
And you've got underground water systems in Alpine Village, Bear Valley. trying to think if there's any other ones that are on the public roads. It's not something we have to worry about now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's just
I
not
would
just
think that we
Murphy.
would have to, gonna have to, no, I know, and I would think that we would have to identify where those areas are
Exactly,
and kind
exactly.
of who's involved and that kind of thing.
Does this also affect the tribal lands, or are they separate from these? types of-
Separate.
It's, yeah.
no jurisdiction.
Any other discussion? Thanks, you guys. Moving on to item 4.3, travel and tourism. JT and Terry, do you have updates on the Central Sierra Economic Development District?
I don't really have any updates, and so I'll yield to Terry if she has any. It's been a little quiet for the last couple weeks, and I know I've been working on some other projects.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Our next meeting's in May.
Okay, great, great. I'll probably say about the same for the Visit California and High Sierra updates. The only thing that I might mention is there is some business training coming up this month on the 17th and the 29th for businesses that are interested in optimizing their digital profile on Google. And those trainings will build on each other. So you can attend one or the other, but it's best if you can attend both of them to get the full. Thank you. There's one on the 17th at 9 a.m. and one on the 29th, and I can send that information out.
And what is that for? I'm sorry, I missed the
So
beginning.
Miles Partnership is an organization that's working with Visit California to
Yeah.
try to help optimize our digital presence online on Google. So like Google Places, when you go there and you see your first impression basically of communities and businesses within those communities. And so we've had some training from the destination management perspective on how to do that. And now they're bringing this training to the businesses within our communities so that the businesses can go on there and say, okay, Margaritaville General Store, this is where, where you could use some improvements, or this is what you're doing great. And it's, again, a 2-part series.
Thank you.
So that's all I have for Visit California. Did you have anything, JT?
Nope.
All right. 4.3.3, discussion of the Eastern Sierra Scenic Byway and the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway.
Yeah, so basically, I wanted to provide a little bit more information based on our discussion last meeting regarding the Eastern Sierra Scenic Byway, potential designation, how that might tie into the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway. And so obviously I provided, a little bit of reading on the benefits of the scenic byways, FAQs, kind of the process. And in addition to that, I did reach out to, and I'm gonna
Michelle Plotnick.
Michelle Plotnick to try to engage her so that we can have some conversations as it relates to the Eastern Sierra and then tying into Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway. Unfortunately, the most recent meeting I was unable to go to due to a family emergency for the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway Association. Were you by chance able to go to that?
I was at that one.
Do you maybe just want to give us like just a quick update? Because Terry, you weren't able to make it too, were you?
No, I was at CSAC and I couldn't get back in time for it.
Could you just maybe give us a quick update on kind of?
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the logistics of establishing the byway status or anything like that, but the association is looking at different ways to engage the communities and come up with some events that draw people in and kind of bring awareness about the byway status. So we looked at that. There's an event on June 12th over on, I believe it's in Murphy's. Where is that facility, Terry? Where the winery?
Yeah, it is, oh my gosh, I'm just drawing a blank on it right now. Anyway, yeah, it's between Murphy's and Avery and Bryce Station, sorry, Bryce Station, yeah.
So
Winery, it's a really nice venue. We've held events there before. We took a tour of it about a month ago, and it's just a beautiful site where we would have it. There's a couple of different sites there. Deanne, you probably know where that is. And yeah, so we're gonna have an event there on June 12th.
So that will be a concert from 2
Right.
p.m. And then we've been tasked with finding a similar venue, and maybe not a similar venue, but a similar concept for this side of the community to try to tackle both ends of that byway. So that was what was talked about most.
Awesome.
Yeah, but not so much the logistics.
Totally, yeah.
Terry, do you want to talk about the grant that they received?
Oh, hadn't we talked about this at this meeting? I guess we hadn't. Oh, I didn't forget, it's the Caltrans Clean California, whatever act. I can't remember. A lot of money was available for that, and Caltrans picked the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway after 17 years of us asking to get monument signs and like those California poppy signs. It would be the sign for the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway. And so we're going to get that. And so the monument signs will be at the beginning in Arnold at the 89 and 4 intersection, and then in Markleyville.
Thank you.
So we're quite excited about that.
Yeah.
17 years.
Long time in the making.
Yeah.
I do have, I'm gonna try to squeeze this item in here if it's okay. Can I add a discussion point or?
You're the chair.
You're the chair.
Well, I didn't
We
know.
work
I
for
don't
you.
wanna- So I think the county's already talking about this to some degree, but it came up with the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway, and it's come up in some conversations with Liberty Utilities, and it's come up in some side conversations to me to look for places for EV charging stations on both ends of the byway. And I didn't know to what extent that had already been discussed in the county, if locations have been identified, but there's been some discussion about that chamber parking lot, which I would certainly be open to.
Oh, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a county facility, so that would be a great location as far as, I would say, visual awareness. And I am working with a gentleman, Mike Me, right, over in
Yes, Mike Me.
Bear Valley, about a location for an EV charging station in Bear Valley.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I would say if you, me, and him put our heads together, and then maybe we could present something to the board about some ideas and implementation. And the nice thing is Larry, who works in our department as well, is pretty up to speed on the EV charging, kind of the way it happens. I don't even know, but
There's a lot for
Yeah.
this.
Well, he has a car and he's familiar with how it all works.
yeah. And it looks like, I think Frank's got his hand up too.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, just a quick question and or thought and or question is, thinking about the range of an EV, knowing where, making sure we don't have people running out of juice 10 miles from the chamber if they've come from Bear Valley, for example. So really taking the range into account, not just Bear Valley, Eastern County to Western, but also maybe looking at some of the other charging stations in the greater area. So if someone's coming from Gardnerville or Tahoe and charged up here, but wants to go through Bear Valley, it's not just location. I think it's also marketing and education about, hey, we know you charged up in South Lake Tahoe, but you're going to Bear Valley. You might want to stop here in Markleyville to make sure you get there.
Yeah. What is it, like last gas for like 50 miles or something like that? Be like
Cost charge.
last charge for 50 miles.
And you can hitchhike with a gas can. You can't hitchhike with the entire Tesla. So
Yeah, you can't throw those batteries on your back. And I think that's a great point, Frank, because I think that problem is only going to become more and more of a challenge as more and more people switch over to electric cars. There's more demand for charging station. I mean, if you think about trying to get gas at Costco, now you're trying to charge your car at Costco and you've got 400 people in line and it takes an hour or two to charge your car. Well, that's a whole different problem that exists.
One of the reasons that I'm so bullish on EV charging stations, even though I'm not bullish on electric vehicles, is I look at Marketville as a perfect example. If you have a rapid charging station or a couple of rapid charging stations, these things aren't cheap. In Marketville, people have got to stop for 20 minutes, half an hour. No, they're going to buy something.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's an economic. This is economic development for me.
They should be put in places where they can stay for that
Yeah,
Less time, yeah.
exactly. Like we're at the chamber, I feel like that's a home run, you know, and so as we think of this with Mike Me, in Bear Valley, Terry, and what I'll maybe try to do is get a meeting with him additionally when I'm there in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
That, you know, we should think about that too. So placing it near, you know, the business core, or maybe it's near the event
right.
company or something to that effect.
There's been a Tesla one at the Bear Valley Lodge for several years, but that's an older model, and they were looking for something other than Tesla. And they had the Bear Valley Business Association purchased that other type, which and I can't remember the name of it, but it's really hard to install down at the gas station. So and there is a small little convenience store there attached to the gas station, but it would also be nice to be closer to the village where we have the grocery store and the restaurants.
Exactly. Kind of biggest bang for our buck.
Right.
Okay.
JT and others, it might be worth reaching out to. I know it's TRPA, much to your delight, does not impact your lives in.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
my soon-to-be wife works for them. They impact and
Yeah.
she's been working from home since 2020, so they've been impacting my power bill.
Yeah. Not in the same way they impact us, JT.
Sorry, you're still down.
Not in the same way they impact, but
I'm kidding.
they recently released the newest updated regional transportation plan that does include a significant component of rapid charge EV stations around the lake. Might be worth talking to them as well and take advantage of some of that expertise and work.
Absolutely. And kind of what I'm suggesting, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I say, Becky, there's another person that has been working on this for years, actually, too. Chris Hartnett and Richard Harvey. So I think those should have input on this.
And Chris, I did not receive your email. You said you sent me that, Chris worked on this in 2017.
Yes.
And so I was going to pull up his previous assessments of our facility to use as a starting point, if this discussion evolved. So, and we've also been speaking.
You did not get it, Becky?
We got excited about the idea of helping out there. So
One of the places that was considered before, in addition, it would be, to me, it would be in addition to the chamber, is the parking lot of the administration building.
Yeah, for me, this, I feel checks all the boxes for economic development. So I think this should be an agenda item moving forward and should be one of our key focuses, because I think this is actionable. There's the funding out there, and I think all we need to do is find out what infrastructure will support it. And, I just think it's one of those where I can't see it running into a significant amount of adversity to get this over the finish line.
yeah, Chris,
Especially if we got Liberty. I'm sorry, Chris. Yeah.
Chris, did you have something
Liberty
else?
Utilities had an incentive program about 3 years ago when Richard Harvey and I and Zach talked to them. I don't know if it still exists, but there were some restrictions involved with it, and Liberty, recommended highly that the place that they would apply those incentive dollars was to the county parking lot. They didn't feel as though the chamber at that time was a location that would fit into their incentive program. I don't know if the incentive program still exists. The county wasn't able to move ahead with it, and so it may be gone.
They have a new manager now, too.
Well, the infrastructure bill has a pile of money, a ton of money. They have a goal of 250,000 or something like that, electric vehicle charging stations across the country. And then most of that's going to hit the interstate, but there's other programs as well in the federal budget and as well as the state budget for putting them in rural areas. There's an emphasis on rural areas.
Yeah.
And for people going to work, commuting to work and so on like that, one of the 220, the camera level 2, I think is probably more than adequate. But for tourists coming through that want to fuel up in 20 minutes or half an hour, you need the big ones. the level 3, I think it's called.
That's right.
And these are 50 to 100,000 each installed.
So maybe you could.
Candace has something, or
Go ahead, Candace.
Community development had done a lot of work with Liberty. Chris is absolutely right. When Zach was here, there was a change in Liberty in terms of the program where the person who was managing Liberty became the new South Lake Tahoe City Council person. And then we had a new person take over the program at Liberty. But as far as we know, they, as of a year ago, they were still interested in working with us and trying to put an EV station in the county parking lot at the admin building. So that could still be a possibility for sure.
That's great.
And one of the incentives that Liberty offered was a reduction to the county in its utility bill for the installation of the longer range charging stations. They wouldn't do it for the short term because it spins that meter like a top, but they would for the longer range charging stations. And they pay for the installation of both types. But again, I don't know if that incentive program still exists.
And Chris, just to confirm what you said a reduction in the county's energy bill, not like a reduction in rate for the community, right?
Okay.
No, the reduction would be where the EV stations were, let's use the term, plugged into the let's say use the county as an example, plugged into the county's service. The county would reap a benefit from as a reduction in their electric bill.
Okay, got it.
I think we need to definitely go forward with that and put as many of them in the county as we possibly can do.
Yeah, let's
Everywhere.
I mean, I think a joking goal or a milestone would be is that we have more electric charging stations per capita than any other.
we already do.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Nationwide, we already do.
Well, per
It's one of
capita.
those great things when you have a small denominator, it makes your numbers look really good sometimes.
Well, then
We have
maybe,
The mega one at the county where somebody needs to, really charge up, then maybe at the chamber you do the quickie,
Yeah.
or somebody can just get a quick charge,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we'll be the
Nice.
most EV friendly county in the state of
Sure.
California.
And
Maybe that
after
should be a
Yeah.
cool goal to
That would
reach.
be cool.
I like that.
Well, and at the ski areas, it would be great too. And I
Yeah.
know, yeah. so we need-
Absolutely.
right.
Do they have anything? Do you know, Terry?
Bear Valley Ski Area, I don't believe does. And I know Kirkwood, they have something up there, but I don't know exactly where it is.
They have 3 outside where Vale's offices are, or they did have a couple of years ago. 3 chargers up there.
Okay.
And Weiler's Resorts, I think, has
One.
1 or 2.
They had one
It's
time
one.
ago.
But it is a Tesla.
It's very old and it's Tesla.
I was gonna say it is a Tesla.
And is
They're
Tesla
old, they're
proprietary,
very
so
fine.
they,
It was.
okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if it still is.
okay.
All right. Moving on to farming.
Okay,
Sorry.
state byway still.
Okay.
And Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but when 17 years ago, when you did all that work, was that the county or was it community members that were putting all that together?
The no, it was not the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so I was part of it before I was a supervisor, and Marita Callaway, who was a supervisor for Calaveras County, and she still is, she was involved, and then Michelle Plotnick and a couple other people, Forest Service and Chico State.
The reason I asked that question is unfortunately, we don't have this in our strategic plan. So it makes it difficult for the county to put a lot of resources into it. But if there's community members that are interested, or maybe the chamber could take the lead and the county could supply a few dollars, that might get us around the problem, because we really are trying to stick to the strategic plan as closely as possible. And I-
Yeah, and the chamber did not get involved at all before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But so that would be really helpful.
In my reading the strategic plan, and I looked at it, it's really hard to fit this obviously in, and we want it, so we gotta find another way. If we're gonna pursue this, we wanna find another way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it could kind of get wedged under the economic development piece, but there's not really a subcategory that it falls cleanly under. But I mean, this could be at least the committee, this committee could continue to, kind of work on it, and maybe if there's anybody that's passionate about it within this committee to take it on, and I'm happy to work on it as much as I get approved to work on it. But yeah, to David's point,
The most valuable thing we have in the county is staff time.
So why couldn't it fit under economic development?
Because the sub-character classes there just don't quite cover it. We cover sustainable recreation, but we don't cover, unfortunately, we don't cover tourism in general.
Wasn't that a problem?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but-
mean, I thought that's what we were supposed to be doing, was promoting tourism, and it's like, that's not even in our strategic plan. It seems like a failure on our part, so.
well, we did everything we could trying to get community input, and there wasn't very much.
No.
Well, it is in the chamber's mission,
Good.
so we can definitely see what I'm thinking, just thinking out loud, is seeing if we have a board member initially that's interested
Yeah.
in kind of owning this project.
Mhm.
And then definitely if it's okay to continue using this group as
Yeah.
like a guiding
Yeah.
agency, then
Absolutely.
incorporating that
Yeah.
somehow and trying to get some passionate people involved in
Yeah.
it, because I do think that it's a good thing, and we can see how long it can take to make some progress at times. There's no reason to wait.
Yeah. Good.
So.
David, the per capita public input was very high.
Just takes one or two.
Yeah. That's all we have.
Yeah, 1%.
All right, anything else on scenic byways?
So I'll keep this on the agenda.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
My board's meeting on Thursday night, so I
Okay.
may be able to find out if there's some interest there initially. If not, then I'll reach out to our membership and see if there's members that have a passion for this.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item 4.4, farming, forestry, and natural resources. JT.
So I don't have anything for 4.4.1, but I do have two updates on 4.411 and 4.412.
Okay.
So
Carry on.
I will carry on. So this is an ongoing discussion with the University of California Cooperative Extension. We had the initial discussion with them. I believe it was last month, and I've reported that back to this group. We're continuing to kind of see what opportunities exist with the University of California Cooperative Extension, and we have a follow-up meeting with Joe Lynn. Unfortunately, we couldn't schedule it until tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but Thursday. So we'll be meeting with her, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more kind of concrete opportunities for us to pursue moving forward after that. And that's my update for 4.4.11.
So you said nothing for 4.2, 1.2?
No, I have something for that.
Okay.
And this is mainly just, I want to get this discussion started, and this kind of dovetailed off of a project that's going on at the Hungerwell Tea community. They're currently working with BLM to potentially secure a small piece of land for a park that's adjacent to the community. But I think it's a good idea for us to start to consider leveraging some of that goodwill with BLM and US Forest Service into some potential land acquisitions. One of them would be adjacent to Turtle Rock Park. And there could be other opportunities for land acquisition from BLM. But I would just like to get this on the agenda so that we can continue to revisit this. I can continue to work on this, but then also engage Brian Hansen, who's with the US Forest Service, was the deputy district ranger, and I think is now moved back to the recreation manager for the HT. And I do want to start the conversation with trails development within some of the US Forest Service land. and see what interest or ability they have for any land acquisition, land trades. I know it's a way steeper hill to climb with the Forest Service than it is with BLM. But I would like to start those discussions and see what kind of opportunities we can create on the back end of the fire. Because I think now as we move more into what I'm starting to call like full scale recovery, this spring into the summer, I think it's a good idea to at least start those conversations. So once we kind of start to see what our landscape is left with, both with the county's land and with, the BLM and US Forest Service, that we could be already engaged in conversations about ways that we can utilize potentially BLM land adjacent to us, either in a lease or a purchase, and US Forest Service trails, easements, that type of thing. So mainly just kind of a placeholder, but I did want to start that discussion right now because it will take a long time. But if we start Mount Everest now, we'll get there eventually.
So this one actually kind of excites me, to tell you the truth. The tree nursery, that's great, and everything is fine, whatever they want to do. One, do we have a list of lands that they want to dispose of? Okay, so that would be my first question. The other thing was, can any of these lands possibly be used for low-income housing?
I couldn't hear that. What was that question?
She was asking two questions. Well, she asked first.
I
if
heard
we
the
have-
first one.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
second is if the land per the Recreation and Public Purposes Act can be utilized for low-income housing. And I do believe, so examples of typical uses for the act are.
It doesn't say specifically that, but it says for public purposes, which is.
Yeah. Municipal facilities, hospitals, parks, fairgrounds. Because I know this one's almost pretty specific to recreation, obviously, per the act. Let's see. Papers are now jumbled. 24, 25. Okay. I would say not to my knowledge, but I think it's worth engaging them and asking.
I think so too, because we definitely have a problem with having employees.
And Candace has something to say, but I'm pretty sure that under public purpose, as long as it's the county or a nonprofit, probably they will go for it. But I can't think of an example of where they have for housing, but it is reasonable. I know they wouldn't throw us out the door.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's like, put it out there as how can we make it?
Yep.
fit, You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some way of going around that. Then the other thing that I just thought of as we were talking about scenic byways, this has restrooms and monuments and that kind of stuff. That can work in the scenic byway also. So there's some funding possibly that we could access that might even be good for electric vehicle charging stations too. So this one has, it's like one size fits a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, so.
I think we have some exciting things happening.
So,
I know Candace will probably have something valuable to add.
So at the current time, no, the recreation and public purpose could not be used for housing. However, BLM does do disposals in Southern Nevada, and those disposals are used to fund affordable housing. That's something that was done over 20 years ago in Southern Nevada. So there may be an opportunity there, but that's something long-term. But no, recreation public purpose cannot be used for housing.
And just one additional question for you, Candace, regarding the BLM disposal in Southern Nevada. Did they dispose of the lands and use the funds to do affordable housing projects?
Yes, yes, exactly.
And were they the entity that was the developer, or did they
No.
dispose them to a local jurisdiction so that they?
No, it was nonprofits in Clark County
Okay.
under the consortium, but that was done, I think that actually required congressional legislation, the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act.
And those funds are fairly flexible. The Forest Service has used those funds for projects. So they are fairly flexible. I did have a map of the BLM's projects or properties that were designated for disposal. I've searched everywhere, and I can't find it.
I'll look into that.
But
Just
I was
curious.
looking at it in terms of biomass to bioenergy facility, and unfortunately, what they had marked for possible disposal was the topography was going to be too expensive. However, in terms of recreation, you know, for example, around Turtle Rock Park, it doesn't have to be flat when you go for a hike.
Nope.
You know, so it may work for that, people like the hike up there, whatever that is, peak up there.
Yeah.
But we couldn't put a plant there, so that was the end of my interest, and I lost the map.
And
We can get another one.
And I think the only other consideration with this would be that I do believe that we would be the responsible party for the NEPA of it, correct?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The land is almost free, but the process is not.
Yeah,
Never.
and
is.
there's $100 non-refundable filing.
Oh, my gosh. I'll
Keep
do
that.
it.
Hang on.
Did you see that community facilities loan program that the USDA came out with?
I did. I think that would be another one to,
And we all hate loans, but
well, if they want to forgive it. Great, well,
okay.
it sounds like we got some energy for this, so we'll continue to move this forward.
Do you need anything from us?
No, I think between myself and kind of doing some brainstorming with Candace and our team, I think that we can just start some discussions, see where the phone tree leads us. And, you know, I think having by next week, at least, next month, at least a designee within BLM at who we want to start these conversations with, and maybe if we can get that land available for disposal, and then, you know, potentially identify a couple of parcels that are adjacent to our recreational facilities. Yeah, I think that I think we could have that by the next meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments on that item before we move on? We touched on this, housing and workforce development. Frank and JT, do you have any updates in that realm?
I got nothing, so I'll yield over to Mr. Gerdeman.
I will quickly just say it was exciting to hear the conversation start, even if that particular project and process wouldn't allow housing. David, you mentioned you know, the county not being involved. This may be the time to start thinking about, and this
Rob, did everybody
in
freeze?
Alpine County. Oh,
Oh.
did I freeze?
No, it was us that froze, but we froze everybody else, and it's saying our network connection isn't stable. So it just might be everybody's crunching numbers right now. So maybe just give it one more time, Frank.
I'm just going to say we might want to add to a future agenda some discussion around a housing authority. If other projects would allow for housing, but would require either a nonprofit or a county presence or operation of that housing authority, might be something worth looking at. We're certainly starting to talk about that on the South Shore as we look at affordable residential workforce housing. So we absolutely stay away from low income because of the perceptions that creates. And we really want to drive home that we're talking about residential workforce housing in our communities.
Yeah.
Good points, thank you, Frank.
And then I will say along those lines with the housing is our behavioral health services director and housing director is now started here. We're not going to throw them to the wolves just yet for this group, but it might make sense to invite them for future meetings where we can at least kind of just share what we've been working on so that they can at least not duplicate any efforts, and we can provide them assistance, you know, at every opportunity.
Could you share his title again?
Behavioral health and housing director.
Or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, a little bit more information about him. He's the current CAO of Trinity County, is currently transitioning out of that and used to be the housing director for Shasta County. So definitely comes with a wealth of experience. I think a wealth of knowledge, and will be a valuable resource to us moving forward. So I'll make sure that this gentleman, of course, I don't even know his name yet.
Richard.
Richard, oh, thank you. That we get Richard an invite to future Economic Development Advisory Committee meetings.
So he hasn't started yet, or he's kind of. in
I believe he
transition?
started, I think last week might have been his first week. But
Yeah.
it's still kind of,
He was at the ice cream social.
yeah. I missed the
I
answer.
heard about the ice cream social.
We need to make sure Becky gets future invites to the ice cream social.
Well, I attended by Zoom.
Oh,
I could have done that.
that way you can get whatever ice cream you want too.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't get stuck with like pistachio at the end.
Dang it.
Becky, I would just add on the workforce development side, it may or may not be incredibly relevant, but there's some really good information in survey results that were just released last week by the Tahoe Prosperity Center from Tahoe. I'm going to put the link to the report on their website in chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is some interesting info. I'm sharing it now instead of member updates because I have sadly I have someone coming in at 3:00. We're a little short staffed, so I have to administer a test to one of our clients today. So if we didn't get to it, I wanted to make sure I had a chance to share it. So it's in the chat.
Thank you. Any particular takeaways that you had?
A couple of points. I think one is nothing is surprising. Housing is the number one issue far and away here. I think one of the things that I would highlight is almost 1,800 people replied to this survey. And for the first time in certainly the 6 years I've been here, an organization explicitly created an English and a Spanish version and explicitly sought input from the non-native speaking, the Hispanic and Latinx communities. So that's it.
Great.
Thanks, Frank. That moves us on to policy news and updates, item 4.6. Do you have any?
I don't have any policy news or updates.
I have a question on one. What did we end up doing with vacation rentals? We had that.
I can't hear Deanne.
Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. I was just asking what we had decided, what the board had decided on vacation rentals, and we were to limit how many on the eastern slope, and I've never heard.
Thank you.
The ordinance is passed.
Okay, and how many?
35, is it, Terry?
Yes.
On the east slope.
East slope.
Yeah.
But that was thanks to Terry and David.
Okay, and that is from Kirkwood all the way down to the state line.
Doesn't include, no, it doesn't
Doesn't
include.
include Kirkland.
So just Woodford's.
Woodford's, Martinville, state line, Woodford's, Martinville.
Okay, and then just for my own edification, because I have a home that I might want to do this, but I need to apply for a license.
Yep. Candace, you want to just run them through the process for DHR registration?
But what if I'm in a commercial district?
I think she might be able to answer that question for you. Go for it, Candace.
So I think that's one thing we're going to need to resolve because the short-term rentals are supposed to be, primary residential dwellings. And I think there may be coming through the housing element, the recommendation that's been on the books for several years now that, residential uses, particularly multifamily uses, need to be allowed by right in the commercial zoning district, not just as accessory uses to commercial uses, more mixed use development. And if it comes in that way, then there won't be a little bit of gray area here because basically the residential units that are accessory to the commercial properties in Markleeville Historic District, they're supposed to be accessory, not primary residential dwellings. And we know obviously that there's, at least one STR, maybe more, that are accessory to the commercial properties. And I think moving forward, because of the housing element recommendations, that will make it easier in the future for residential units to have short-term rentals in the commercial zoning districts.
Thanks, Candace.
still on 4.6.1?
Yes.
Okay, from the Eastern Sierra Sustainable Recreation Partnership. There is the Sierra Nevada Conservancy funded the Connected Communities Trail Plan, which you may remember was the trail system from Tahoe Basin down to southern Indian County. This is a planning grant, so we're not needing construction. We're trying to figure out where to connect existing trails, where new trails are needed, et cetera. So that was just announced at their March 3rd board meeting. So that's hot off the press. The Camp Like a Pro program has been recommended by Sierra Nevada Conservancy staff for approval, and that will come up at the June board meeting. So those are two things that are moving ahead. And there is one thing that I forgot to mention, if I can back up a little bit to the forestry section. There is a serious a serious project to put in a sawmill in the Carson City area. That will make a huge difference to what we can do in terms of fuels reduction. There hasn't been a sawmill in this part of the world for 40 years. Assuming it goes ahead, there's serious people working on it. Meeting with them next week. That'll make that could make a big difference to us here in Illinois County.
Is it an existing mill?
No,
or-
it'll be a brand new facility.
But I mean, who would run it? It would be an existing.
The investors behind it are called Haldor, I think. And
Canadian.
no, they're based in Reno. And they have, I haven't met these people yet. I'm meeting them next week. And then they have, I think it's forest products or something like that. That's the technical, the managerial expertise that we go with. They're currently negotiating over a site in Carson City. And they hope to finalize that on Friday. And then next week, assuming that goes well, go to moving south with them. So we're not going to get the economic development director. That's going to go in Carson City, but it'll help us.
Wow, place to send the trees.
Yes, yeah,
It's huge.
Yeah, the Humboldt Abbey is really excited about it. Cal Fire is really excited about it. Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden it opens up possibilities that we didn't have before.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're gonna need all of our California trees, that's for sure, because there's only so many in Nevada.
Rocks.
That's good news.
Yeah, that's great
Interesting.
news.
So that was the good news section of what I have.
Anything else on policy news and updates from anybody? All right, seeing none, we will move on to fire recovery. Discussion and updates from Alpine County regarding Tamarack and Caldor fire recovery efforts.
So my specific update is 47111 with the state and private forestry grant. So unless anybody has anything else for the Tamarack and Caldor fire recovery, I can start there.
Go ahead.
Okay. So unfortunately, those of you who are joining us online, you got the digital copy of the EDAC agenda, and you can basically probably can't see it, but the multicolored spreadsheet is on packet page 42. You might be able to blow it up 100 times and actually see what it actually looks like. For those that are in person, I was able to print out some 11 by 17s, but if you guys would like me to or want to come by the office, I have some extra copies, and I'll also bring them to the board supervisors meeting where this item will be held. But prior to that, I just want to give a quick update on where we are with the state and private forestry grant. So for the last meeting, we were awarded $1.815 million from state and private forestry, and a little bit of confusion. So I do just want to clear it up. State and private forestry is a division under the U.S. Forest Service. So it's not Cal Fire and private forestry folks coming together. It's a U.S. Forest Service grant. it's the first time that this division has been tasked with allocating fire recovery grants of this nature. So we're kind of in some uncharted waters. So they're trying to figure out the process like we're trying to figure out the process. But I will say that Representative Dana Walsh over at State and Private Forestry has been incredible to work with, incredibly responsive and supportive, and has assisted me along the way. So, I would say we're probably about, 40 to 50 hours in processing this grant, going through the deliverables and determining what the best practices are. So what you have in front of you are two main documents. The first one is the budget or proposed budget that we will be putting in front of the Board of Supervisors on the meeting for the 15th. And I want to kind of just go over first the funds and the process. So the funds have been awarded. We have to submit our final application with this budget attached in order to basically encumber the funds for Alpine County to start to move forward with the actual allocation of the grant funding. So step one is we submit the grant with the approval of the Board of Supervisors and we start to move forward. And the way that the funds are going to be distributed is it's a reimbursable grant. So they're not going to cut us a check for $1.815 million, but they have allocated $1.815 million, and we have to provide them with invoices and work that falls under the purview of what the grant is outlined. So that is, it's good, but it creates some challenges as it relates to cash flows and the ability for the county to be able to functionally take on a grant of that size and allocate it without having some challenges with the accounting and cash flow. So with that all said, the first spreadsheet is, you can see it's broken down into categories of applicable work and approvable work, and then a breakdown of the years in which we're anticipating the work to be done. It's a 4-year grant. You have a 5-year buffer, but the goal is to move efficiently and quickly as possible. So the work that is will be approved is the administration of the grant, the travel or general expense travel of anything involved with the work that is approved, equipment and supplies. Now, it says equipment and supplies, but actually the only reimbursable items are supplies. So no equipment, you can't go and purchase, a front end loader or a chipper, but you can purchase things like shovel rakes, hand saws, chainsaws, garbage containers, PPE, those types of things. And it's also approvable for brochures, marketing materials, direct mailers, visual aids, things along those lines. The work that we're, I'm proposing that we put the most amount of funding into is the contractual work. And this work is essentially going to be the main work that's going to be getting done as it relates to the actual mechanical revegetation, reforestation, logging, erosion control, debris management, and forestry management. And so you can see a significant portion of the funding is allocated to that. And then you have some kind of smaller amounts for rental fees for equipment and administrative support. But keep in mind that this budget is mainly just to show that we only anticipate spending these dollars along these efforts for the contractual work. However, we're not held to that exact amount. So there's a lot of flexibility in it. So the reason that I broke it down with year 1 being a smaller amount, year 2 and year 3 being a larger amount, and year 4 being a smaller amount is year 1, I think there's going to be a lot of due diligence. We're going to have to get a registered professional forester involved. We're going to have to do site visits. We're going to have to make project plans, and probably going to be some back and forth with state and private forestry about allowable expenses, things along those lines. Year 2 and year 3, I think, is when we're going to be able to see the majority of the bulk of the work get done. So, entering onto private landowners, conducting the work, trying to get as far as we can by year 3. In year 4, you start to see it taper off and trail off because in an ideal situation, we've done the majority of the work. and then we're expending the remainder of the allocated budget. Keep in mind also, there's flexibility within the years, but there's also flexibility within the specific work to get done. So the personnel, the grant administrator, you know, there could be a likelihood where that could go higher or lower. In a perfect world, it would go lower, and so on and so forth. So this is a tentative budget and a flexible budget. It is not something, once we submit to state and private forestry, they're going to hold our feet to the fire for each one of these line items, but these are the allowable expenses that we will need to work within. And this budget mainly just goes to show that we've looked at it. We're going to do the work in accordance with their guidelines. The way that the actual work is to get done is more so on page 43. So I'll just go over that, and then I'll answer any questions throughout the whole state and private forestry grant. So there's really two opportunities for the work to get done on private landowners. And the first one is that the landowner will take on the initial financial responsibility. Oh, we're losing David. The initial financial responsibility of hiring the contractors, securing the contracts, and checking in with us to make sure that the work that they are doing falls within the grant guidelines. They then, work gets done, they submit invoices to the county. We then take a look at the invoices, ensure that everything got done for the grant guidelines. We approve it, we send it to state and private forestry. State and private forestry reimburses us. That's about a 7 to 14 day process. Once we submit approvable invoices to them, we take that money and then distribute it back to the landowner. So as you can see, there's a time frame involved where the landowner is going to have some front end investment before they can recoup any investment in the cleanup. You know, that there's some benefit to it as well, because the landowner can move faster than the county can. Now, here's the other opportunity that exists. So let's just say you're a landowner and you don't have the financial capacity to do that, but you still have the hardship of having this, you know, fire affect your parcel. Well, you can contact the county, and the county will have a registered professional forester, and then contractors in which the landowner will grant us a right of entry. We will go in, we will conduct that work. We will then invoice state and private forestry. State and private forestry reimburses us. So there's benefits and drawbacks to both. The benefit to the private landowner doing it on their own behalf and invoicing the county is they can move faster than we can. A lot of them do want to move faster than we have the ability to, and they're still going to get reimbursed as long as they follow the rules. With the county, it's a little bit, what we're trying to do is create equity in the ability to go in and conduct this work. So we want to understand that there are people with financial challenges that can't do this. We can go and do that work for them. However, it's going to take a longer process because we need to get our team in place before we can start to conduct this work. And so this is all with the caveat of this is what I'm presenting to the board for them to give direction on how to proceed. So though these are two options, the board might just choose one option or might just choose another option. And one final consideration to be making is if the county takes on that initial expense, then the county also needs to determine financially the cash flow and being able to expend dollars to go conduct this cleanup work and recoup those dollars and not put us in a cash flow situation. With that said, I think RCRC has the availability to do no interest loans and provide us that kind of, we'll call it margin, so that we can conduct that work. But that's also why when you see the budget, it's not $1.815 million in year one or $1.815 million in year two. It's just providing us an opportunity to ensure that the work gets done. We're going to move as quickly and efficiently as possible. In a perfect world, we might get it done by year 3. We might get it done by year 2. But keeping all these considerations in mind, this is what I would say is the most conservative way to approach this grant administration. that will provide the greatest value to the landowners who've experienced a hardship. So that's it. I guarantee you there's something I'm not talking about in here, but it will be heard at the Board of Supervisors meeting on the 15th. We'll get some more direction as to kind of some concrete efforts to move forward, and state and private forestry is ready to go. We'll be ready to go. And that's all I have.
I have a question. Do you have a list of people that have this need?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we initially submitted the request for funding from state and private forestry, we did get a list together, kind of an introductory list of some of the larger landowners that have experienced the fire.
I had that in our last packet.
Yeah, on the properties.
Yeah.
But what we want to ensure is that we capture everybody. So what will probably happen is we'll go back out with a small application, and that application will be distributed widely. We'll utilize the chamber to get it out. We'll get it out through our channels just to make sure if anybody did experience this type of damage on their property that falls in line with the guidelines, that they can submit an application, we can review it, and we can determine the appropriate course of action and allocation of funding.
Are you allowed to use Nextdoor? Because a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
people use Nextdoor.
Yeah, I think Nextdoor would be valuable, to get it out. And what we might have to do is send it to some, I can't get on Nextdoor in Markleyville because they sent me the letter that confirms that I actually live in Markleyville. And I don't know what happened, but for some reason, I can't get on that one. So I might send it to
Can
one
you
of,
put this address in?
Give me as a reference.
oh, that's what we'll do then.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't remember what the procedure is.
Oh, yeah, we'll
Either I
figure out.
nominate you, or you nominate,
Yeah,
or you ask for a nomination. I can't remember. It's a place you click.
yeah. But
that's right.
I think Nextdoor is critical. I think
Yeah.
Nextdoor, Facebook.
Because a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is we'll reach out to the Record Courier, put something in the RC,
Good.
put something in South Tahoe now. I mean, my biggest fear is that we allocate all these grant funds, we think we just killed it, and then someone came and was like,
Wait a minute,
I didn't hear anything, you know? And
Well, they're gonna say that anyways, and it may or
True.
may not be
Yeah,
true.
there will be
true,
trouble.
you know, I think if we hold that as as the golden, star or whatever, that we're trying to reach everyone, inevitably we might miss some folks. But I think as long as we try to cover our basis and get this monies expended, and I will say that the biggest piece of direction I received from state and private forestry is equity. You know, we can't just be giving money away to large scale landowners because they just have more land and they had damage on their land. We really try to, as a percentage base, try to create the greatest good for the greatest number.
Question, JT?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, actually I've got quite a few. What does the county, in this spreadsheet, what does the county consider an acreage, a large scale landowner? What's the minimum amount of acreage?
That's more just a kind of a colloquial term that I've created, but there, I don't think is an acreage limitation to qualify for this grant.
Okay,
If that answers your question a little more clearly.
for that one, yeah. Does CEQA have to be performed?
Yes.
Okay, it's not on your spreadsheet and there's no cost that is attributable to completing CEQA by a qualified contractor.
Yeah, that would kind of fall somewhere under the forestry management. But yes, it will need to be done, and we will make sure the first step in the process is we're going to have to hire an RPF to assist with the contractual procurement, to assist with the on-site determinations of what is approvable and what is not. And of course, assist with the CEQA process.
Okay, and with your schedule, your spreadsheet, the multicolored one, being that CEQA was not addressed in this multicolored spreadsheet, you've already anticipated that that's going to push you back somewhere between 8 months and a year to get CEQA done on all of these private properties.
So that is why we want to provide an opportunity to have two different avenues to proceed with the work to get done. Because, we're not going to be able to wait for CEQA to get done on all properties, but as it gets done property by property, you can basically approve and move forward with. So yes, it's going to take time, and that's kind of why we're reflecting in year one. We're going to see less work getting done versus year two and year three. And of course, this is all very flexible as it relates to our ability to move money around and also move money from one year to another.
Okay. In your sheet that you provided with has the yellow squares and the green squares. If the county takes on this project or these projects, is the county going to be required, or is the county going to require that of themselves that you secure right of entry forms from each one of the property owners to absolve the county of any damage?
Yes.
Okay. Even though we live in this electronic era, the best way that I've found from the Fire Safe Council to actually positively communicate with property owners up here is U.S. mail. Not everybody deals with in the electronic era.
Yeah, so for your comment, Chris, if you look under the equipment and supplies, in there we have some direct mailers as an identifiable expense. So that might be something that we utilize as an outreach opportunity.
Okay. Being that Markley Village, where I live, is involved in the large portion of these, quite a few of these larger landowners, are the residents of Markley Village going to be apprised ahead of time of the proliferation of logging trucks running up and down Pleasant Valley Road to get all this lumber out of here?
We will do our best from the public information standpoint to keep everybody notified of projects and work that is going to be getting done that would create a disturbance to those trying to have quiet enjoyment of their property.
Okay. Under contractual, it says logging. Are you anticipating having to haul tree parts out, or is it all going to be mulched in place?
There's a small likelihood that there might be salvageable logs, but the majority of it is going to either be chipped or masticated on site.
Okay. Under indirect charges, it says RPF review, and all across the spreadsheet, it says $10,000 a year. Just an experience from the Fire Safe Council, it's costing us in the range of about $6,500 per acreage to do an RPF study and CEQA, but your spreadsheet doesn't reflect that. So you have currently talked to RPFs to obtain a cost from them?
So Chris, this is RFP review. So this would be if the county goes out to RFP for contractors to conduct the work, these would be some indirect administrative dollars that we could allocate to that RFP review committee, potentially council review, legal support. When it comes to RPF, the Registered Professional Forester, I am in conversations with one currently. I just had his name written down, and it's probably on a different piece of paper. Kevin is one of the ones that we're having conversations with, and Don Hittenmiller and I have had some conversations about some recommendations. But that RPF would be under contractual instead of the administrative, and the indirect is mainly just kind of a catch-all. And per the grant, we're actually allowed 10% indirect for the grant. So I'm trying to be a little bit more on the conservative side of that, so that we could try to put these dollars to their greatest and best use in the contractual line item. But I do see, your comments.
Okay, and then
Before you go on with your question, Just a second, please.
If the,
Almost 3 o'clock, so I just wanted to make sure everybody that's here is available to stay. And if not, and you need to leave, were there any updates? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
thank you. If the private property owners are going to take on the first costs of revegetation and removal of the trees, experience again in talking to the loggers that work for the U.S. Forest Service, even 45 acres, which is one of the property owners up here in Markley Village, they told me they wouldn't take on smaller parcels unless they can get an agreement for a sufficient amount of work to bring their equipment up here. That imparts a huge obligation on a single property owner to find a logger and find somebody that does that work, that the logger can see that they're going to get paid. I see a problem there myself.
Yeah, and we want to provide as many opportunities as possible. Let's just say that someone's got money coming out of all sides of their pockets and doesn't want to wait for the county or the process. We want to encourage them to be able to move forward. But let's say, to your point, there's someone with 45 acres and they want to get this work done quickly and don't want to wait for the county, but don't have the financial capacity to. What we also want to encourage is the economy of scale by maybe a few landowners coming together with some sort of MOU between the three of them that they will share the cost or try to create enough work for this contractual labor to occur and be conducted. But if they can't, then they would have to go with that option where the county comes on with their team that they've gotten in place and conducts the work on behalf of the landowner.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All great questions.
JT, when does this grant begin officially?
The grant begins officially as soon as we can get the application into them and they approve it.
Okay, so that would commence the first grant year.
That would commence the first grant year. Once the board says go, once state and private forestry says go, my first recommendation and task is going to be to immediately go out and find the most qualified RPF, registered professional forester, to assist us with the due diligence and contractual expertise with finding the contractors that can come in and conduct this work, because I'm 99.9% sure that having an RPF on staff is a requirement of the grant.
There is.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. Does this also cover county property or is it totally?
Nope,
private?
only private landowner. So none of this can go to county property, government property. It also, one thing to keep in mind is it can potentially go to work that's already been done on a private landowner, as long as they have not had it covered by something else like NRCS or EWP or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. So we can't obviously double dip. But there is the potential where work that's already been done, let's just say, hey, you guys just finally got this money and I went and did all the work and now it's too late, that there could be some opportunity where they could submit for some reimbursement. And keeping in mind that $270,000, that might not go far, right? Or $500,000, that might not go far. So we're going to try to do as much as we can to, protect critical infrastructure on the land, protect, watershed, protect groundwater, protect, large scale debris flow potential. I think those are going to be the critical elements, like health, life safety, that type of thing. And then moving down more so into, aesthetic appeal and, that type of thing. Like if you just want to cut down the trees that exist that got burned because you want a better view of the mountains, love that, right? Love that. That's why Dave lives on the Mesa. But that, we just kind of want to keep that weighted in the right direction.
David.
Three things. One, I really like the way your totals work so that the vast bulk of the money is being spent on contractual work on the ground. I think that's great. One of the things that's people are concentrating on is not in the list under contractual, I would add, and that's monitoring. You probably wouldn't do any of that the first year, but you might want to do that the second and third year and the fourth year, and the Forest Service likes to see monitoring to see what's working. You know, some of the, to give you an idea, I mean, the survival rates in some of these replanting programs can be as low as 3 to 5%. So figuring out what works as quickly as possible is important. The other thing is on your RPF, I can certainly give a high recommendation to Kevin Whitlock. He's done work for the county that he's never charged for.
Yeah.
And he knows the community. He's done a lot of work here. You know, my recommendation isn't what you got to go on.
Yeah.
But I've been impressed.
You're not the only person that's made that recommendation, and you know, my probably recommendation to the board is due to his knowledge of the land, knowledge of the process, is that we could sole source with him to get him on board as fast as we can. And then if we need to go RFP for some of the other contractors, you know, we can do that. But you know, getting him on board quickly, I think is going to be good. So I have a call with him tomorrow as well to kind of connect.
So I couldn't hear who that recommendation was.
Kevin Whitlock
Oh, okay.
came very highly recommended by Don Hittmiller.
Yeah. So what is our goal to get all of the private landowners to clear as many trees as possible, or is it just because I want to do it, or?
The goal, at least, and this is just my thoughts, and of course the board could think differently. The goal for me is to first mitigate risk to the landowner that currently exists, but might fall outside of the scope of other programs or outside of their financial ability to do that work. My second goal would be to try to provide as much remedy from, you know, the standpoint of these contractual opportunities to the landowners as possible. So some of the landowners are going to have more of a consideration for health, safety, critical infrastructure, erosion control. Some might have more of a focus on revegetation, reforestation, and that type of thing. So it's really going to be, I think, an individual by individual based determination as to what they're going to be submitting for. And then we'll need a review committee, an application review committee that sits down. We look at and review the applications, you know, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's monthly. I don't know how that process will go. And make determinations on the work to get done that will be reimbursable from the grant. And I do have a fair amount of confidence that in my conversations with Dawn Hittmiller, and there could be some opportunities for some additional grants for this type of work. You know, we're hoping that we might be able to, you know, raise 2 to 3 times as much with the idea that in a perfect world, every single parcel is made whole that has experienced a significant impact from the Tamarack fire.
So would the professional forester, they would be going out? and
They would come
looking
on
at
site.
these
Yep.
Properties,
Yep.
assessing the damage, whether there's anything that's salvageable.
Yep.
Is there an industry that could be had from any of this? When I think of Don Hittmiller and his mill, and I know Blue Wood was a thing at one point in time, so it's kind of like, can we look at this as an opportunity for someone who might want to, or find somebody who might want some of these logs?
And it is in the best interest of the contractors to try to find, you know, a salvageable use for the logs. But I do know that there are some guidelines within the grant about the work going towards financial gain, right? So I think what the RPF is going to do is he's going to come on site, or she, and they're going to make recommendations as to the work that's approvable and allowable. And then they will be able to approve and allow that work to be conducted.
So if somebody doesn't want to have anything done, they can just.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean,
I'm good with it.
you know,
Whatever
like
happens, happens.
if they're adjacent to like a public infrastructure, you know, Cal OES will go on and take care of that work. But if they're perfectly happy with their parcel, they don't want anybody to go on it, they want to leave it undisturbed, it's their parcel. You know, we don't want to impose ourselves on anybody, but we do want to try to create an opportunity where everybody has an
So
opportunity.
this is just letting people know that there is this funding.
There
out
is this
that you
funding.
can access, and if you
Exactly.
want to do something, you can. Okay.
And $1.8 million is not gonna go very far.
No.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we also want to not expend it all in year one or year or two, and kind of spread it out a little bit more, just so that we can create more opportunity to understand what the true impact is to all the landowners. If someone just decided to like live in South America for 2 years and they came home and all the funds are gone, they might have a bone to pick with you.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else, JT, on that part?
No, I would just say, you know, if you guys have any comments that you would like to make from just individual comments or public comment, please attend the March 15th Board of Supervisors meeting and provide those, because, you know, I know the board will appreciate some feedback because it's a complex grant, especially when it comes to the administration, the allocation, and that type of thing. And I will be making the recommendation to the board that I remain as the grant administrator, just because I have a granular understanding of this since I've been involved with it since the beginning, so that we don't have a kind of a passing of the torch and potentially
Dropping of the torch.
dropping of the torch and the torch is extinguished.
Well, no, it's gonna set everything on
Yeah,
fire.
exactly.
The resources that you already have, so.
Yeah.
And I think once these policies and you know, how you're going to go about it gets in place, it'll be really important for us to understand how to communicate that, because there's just so much confusion, and that whole telephone game gets things so contorted sometimes. I mean, it's already come to my attention that January got $1.8 million and she needs to spend it. So, so like things like that.
She's
happen.
running for office.
And I don't think she started that.
No, I
think
don't
that
think
was
she
her.
did either.
I think that was just the way somebody heard something
Yeah.
and they ran with it, and who knows who else they've told. And so I just think that, I mean, if our role can just be to communicate whatever procedures get put in place well, I mean, I think that's something we should own.
And my biggest suggestion for everybody, if you do receive those types of comments, send them to me. Just anybody who might be confused or say something that might not be entirely correct, be like, hey, I just suggest that you check in with JT. You know, he's the guy that's got his finger on the pulse, and I'll go through the whole spiel with them.
Yeah.
And make their heads spin by the end of it. But just make sure that, you know, we got the right information out. And one last quick thing, but as far as outreach, I think it's got to be, you know, direct mailers, but I also think having a public meeting, you know, a TRP where, you know, we have it at 5 to 7, get some refreshments, talk about the grant, talk about the administration. Maybe we have our RPF there, we can introduce him, is something that I think will be important as well.
Great.
Good suggestion.
Okay, moving on. Item 4.8, grants and funding mechanisms. Discussion and possible direction to staff regarding the Community Economic Resilience Fund.
Okay, for those of you that are here, JT is printed out something from the Golden State Finance Authority which talks about this. For those of you not here, I'll try and explain it. Basically, this program, which was $5 million to be spent by the March the 1st, deciding what to do, and then over $500 million over the next couple of years to actually do it in terms of economic resilience throughout the state, had a reality check. The original funding was from ARPA, the American Rescue
Plan Act?
Plan Act. And that money has to be committed by December of 2024 and spent by, I think it's December 2026. And that was obviously causing problems. And so the state made a swap somehow, and this program is now being funded out of the state's general fund. And so there's a relaxation of the timelines. So what was supposed to be done and completed in March is now scheduled for May and June of this year. And awards, which were supposed to be given out, I believe in May, are now figured up to be awarded in August or September. So we've got more time. I don't believe anybody here has heard from I guess it's GoBiz, which is ramrodding this. I don't think they've contacted any of the counties at all yet.
No.
We're in a region with 13 other counties. And I don't even think they have our not county representative, the state representative for the region. I don't even think that's selected yet. So the program is still there. It's still coming. I think if we're smart and lucky, we can make some good use of it. But we've got more time.
Questions?
I like time.
Okay, so no direction to staff at this time, right?
No.
Okay.
Hands off, keep your eyes open, watch your email, watch your right mailbox.
Oh, yeah.
I did just have one little update, something that the chamber is pursuing on recommendation by Nicole at the county, which is very much appreciated, is the California Arts Council has a local arts agency mentorship program available to, there are 4 counties within the state that do not have local art agencies, and we're one of them. The others are Glen, Kings, and San Joaquin. And so El Dorado Arts Council has submitted a grant application to basically be our mentor for a year to try to get some funding to help us establish our own within Alpine County. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed at this point, hoping that we get those funds. And we don't know, basically, like all of these grants, a lot of that first phase, if we do get funded, we'll be just evaluating and finding out what would be the most impactful, how we can impact the community the most. So we hope to hear about that in June.
Great.
Yeah. So I was very appreciative of Nicole for sending us that information. Any other updates on grants or funding from anybody? No. I'll move on to item 4.9, marketing, events, and communications. Probably the biggest update that we have right now is that the Planning Commission approved our special event application for the Death Ride on July 16th. So we're moving forward with the other permits that we'll have to secure to make that happen. But exciting news for us. 30 years of charm. We did hold a meeting with the businesses a couple weeks ago, trying to get business input on how to maximize, how to integrate with them the best and make it worth their while too. We didn't have a great turnout, but we're not giving up on that effort. So we did have some nonprofits at the table that are also willing to help with that. So good stuff happening on that front too. You've heard us talk about our work with Pilgrim Creative Media. Joe Pilgrim is working with the chamber and the county on a video series. Some of it will be used for recruitment for the county, and some of it will be used for tourism promotion. And we've been trying to get people together for Joe to go in and do interviews and shoot video of them doing the activities that they enjoy within the county. That's been kind of going slower than we'd hoped, but on the side,
Can't find anybody enjoying activities in the county.
Well, just gathering all those people, at the right times and trying to capture it while we still have snow and all that good stuff has been a challenge. I'm just really excited about this because, on a side note, we also are working with Job on a Death Ride promotional video, and I received from him today our first round. No video, but just the audio, and I am so stinking excited about this, you guys. He did a really good job, and it'll be even better when we have video to it. So it's going to be really awesome, and it just gives me a lot of confidence in what he'll be able to produce for us in that tourism video.
Yeah,
on his
he's,
recruitment.
he's a rock star, and a big thanks to Becky for kind of the heavy lift with the coordination, and, you know, we're kind of trying to herd cats right now while the snow's melting, and so it's a challenge, but it's one we're excited about. It's a fun product to work on.
If the snow goes too fast, we can't get the video done. Next thing up was rafting.
Right.
Yeah.
right. That could be even more exciting.
Exactly.
I can testify to that.
It's very exciting.
You might film that from the shore.
Drones.
Drones, there you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were kind of going down the Kirkwood Road for some snowshoots, and that has been going kind of slow, so now we're talking to Bear Valley, and that might speed things up a little bit, and Joe might be over at Bear Valley in the next couple weeks, shooting some downhill skiing and outdoor adventure over there. So, yeah, yeah, I'm excited. I just got that first round from the Death Ride piece, and it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
We can tell.
So those are my biggest updates.
and no updates from me, so.
Anybody else? No? Okay. How about item 5, new business?
New business, one thing that I would like to add on there for future discussion is, I was approached by, someone from Alpina Cycling, Carlo Lurie, and he had some questions about the ability for people to cycle on closed roads. So, you know, for Monitor Pass, Ebbets, you know, kind of at this point in time, there hasn't been a lot of snow, road might be clear, and I do believe they've been ticketed before for doing that. So,
Yes, they have.
yeah, so, you know, a potential discussion about, is there a way for that to occur, and that could possibly provide some economic benefit here. There's a lot of complexities involved. Obviously, if someone gets hurt on a closed road, well, you're sending SAR after them, you know, and or you're sending CHP. And so just kind of to look into the feasibility or potential of that.
That's mostly controlled by Caltrans.
Yeah, exactly. So mainly just kind of engaging conversations with Caltrans to say, you know, if there was a way, how would that look? And if there's not a way,
Like a snow park type thing where you get a pass, where you
Yeah.
then have to check in or something to know whether there's anybody out there working on road, or, you know, I mean, do some kind of a fee.
yeah, or maybe it's just one day a year, you know, maybe it's. you
I
know,
can't hear what Dan said.
I was just saying that maybe do something like a snow park for a closed road where they get a pass, so they have to know that, you know,
They're up
there's
there.
hazards, and
Okay.
or register with somebody that I'm going out on this road that day, or, you know, somehow do something to where they can still cycle, because it is nice for them to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
It's kind of safer for them.
In a lot of
Yeah, it
ways,
is.
yes, it's
You
safer
know?
for everybody. So,
And it would bring more people into town when those roads are
Right.
closed.
Exactly,
And then,
exactly.
not just cycling, I mean, we bike in those roads.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Middle of the winter time, so
Yeah.
you get
it's
some
good, it's
days.
wonderful.
it's one of my favorite things to do, yeah. And so it was interesting to hear when Carlos said that he knows of people that have been ticketed, but then it makes sense when you think about the cost of, you know, going in for a rescue or something like that. It's easier to just go, nope, nobody can do it, period, dot. But then there's also, like, I've hiked on, you know, those roads 100 times when they're closed, never had any issue with CHP or anything along those lines. So I think it's just, the reason I brought it up is because I would just like to approach Caltrans.
But it's CHP that's doing the ticketing, right?
Yeah, CHP is doing the ticketing, and then, you know, obviously Caltrans is the road closure authority. So just kind of working together with them to say, what would you need as far as assurances or MOUs, or work together where this might be an opportunity? And it just might not, but, you know, I could think of, you know, if Alpine County Search and Rescue maybe agreed with CHP that if there was an injury, that they would be, you know, the responding entity or something to that effect.
I can't see the excess, any increase in cost to anybody, because I presume that, you know, if somebody falls off their bicycle or something like that, up on Monitor Pass or Evans Pass, who's ever gonna get go there is gonna have a key to the gate. The emergency services have a key to the gate, and just drive there. After all, the guy was able to ride his bicycle there, you can drive a vehicle.
Well, it's just, it's interesting that we're not okay with bicycles, but we're okay with snowmobiles
Yeah.
then? That doesn't even, I mean,
Yeah, so I think it's just a conversation and just to see why it was the way it was, or why it is the way it is, and then how do we potentially
yeah.
make it
'cause,
allowable?
well, I mean, well, like I said, with the snowmobiles, we've always talked about trying to get a little part of Highway 4 open to where we can go back and forth
Yeah.
between Bear
Yeah,
Valley and
yeah.
Markleyville, and that's a closed road, so what does that mean for those people that are out there,
Yeah, right
And they only
now,
room to the top. Do they still do that, Terry? Room to the top on the Bear Valley side?
I can't hear anything that you've said, Deanne. Sorry, I didn't
Do
want
they
to say it
still
again.
room to the top of Abbott's Pass? They room
do
to
they-
the top of that on the
Yeah.
Bear Valley side?
Yeah, they grew to the top
Yeah,
and down to Highlands.
right.
yeah, and on this side, basically, not maybe at the beginning of the winter, but fairly early on, the Caltrans plan plows up until about a quarter mile, a half mile before that cattle guard where it goes up steep.
Right.
And the snowmobilers go up there and they park.
Right.
The road's open to there, and then they take off up Highway 4.
Yeah.
So if they can do it, I don't see why the bicyclists
Yeah,
can't
that
do it.
just
The only
doesn't
difference
make
is CHP doesn't have snowmobiles.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, good, then
So
Go
the
ahead, Terry.
schedule for starting to plow, and I haven't got this confirmed, but this is based on history, would be the 4th of April. They would start plowing the pass. Last year, they started on, here, let me go back. They started on the 5th of April, just because that was a Monday. So, it's quite possible that they are going to start. It's always weather permitting, though. If there's a storm, they aren't going to do it.
Yeah. Well, then, I'll pursue it, and then
Yeah,
we'll put it on the agenda, and I would say after the next EDAC, then we might send it over to the Board of Supervisors, and
Pursue it and don't accept no for an answer.
I'm good at that.
I have talked to somebody that had that conversation with a Caltrans representative, and they gave them some kind of, well, if the sign says this, then you can do this, but it would be nice to have that, even if that's their answer.
Formalize it.
having
Yeah.
that formalized so
Formalize
that
it,
everybody
yeah.
doesn't have to
Yeah, I
question.
mean, it's like if they're gonna be up there working on the road, then yeah, you don't
Totally.
want people up there, but
Yeah.
people are reasonable enough, I would hope, to say, okay, I understand, you've got equipment, so we're gonna just.
The difference with the snowmobiles, at least on Highway 4, is that there is no sign saying the road is closed. So there's just a
Oh,
huge
on
wall of
this
snow.
end. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And
No, there's a gate. There's a gate.
No, not on this side.
Oh,
On this side, no. They close the gate sometimes at the junction of 89-4, sometimes at Centerville Flats. But as soon as they can see ahead, that there's gonna be a clear spot, they plow the road up to just before the cattle guard.
yeah.
And there's no sign saying, there's a sign saying road closed 7 miles ahead of the junction. But there's no sign when you get to the end of the road. This is a huge mountain of snow that they push up.
Yeah, just to be the devil's advocate, I'm wondering if it doesn't have something to do with some lawsuits they've received when people have cycled on Caltrans property and hit a bump or hit a, something like that, and they're just covering their own, because you can't do that with a snowmobile.
Well, yeah.
Get a tree.
Right. But that.
No, I'm guessing it's CYA, it's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
somewhere in there, it's CYA, and maybe if we can ask the right question to the right person, and
Yeah.
we might be able
I
to,
love that permit idea, like just.
But
a
it
wilderness
could-
bridge
Yeah.
almost.
because that could be money generating for them.
And you check the box, I recognize I'm writing my own list.
If I was a cyclist, I get up in the morning, it's a nice day, I wanna go.
But see,
I'm just
these
talking about those trail
permits are,
permits.
yeah, they're like for the season.
Yeah,
So you
Yeah.
just.
Like the
get your
snow
permit
park
for the
one, so
season,
for-
Like a snow park
yeah.
permit, that the store would, we
Mhm.
would issue those permits or something.
like a Christmas tree permit kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You come in, you get your permit and you can go, and it might mean that they have to be a little more diligent about putting up signage or something.
Yeah.
No cycling today or whatever,
Yeah.
There's ways we could probably handle that.
There usually is a heavy equipment sign at the front going over Monitor because of all the snowmobile builders that go over there.
Mhm.
Mobile snowmobiles, nothing's coming out right. And I have seen that before.
Yeah.
Any other new business items for the next meeting? No. Items initiated by committee members. I can't talk more than that.
Becky, I have one.
Yes, Chris.
The Alpine Fire Safe Council is completing its grant application to CAL FIRE, and we've been assured of an award, quite sizable award, and we have submitted 6 fuels reduction projects in eastern Alpine County, beginning the first one in Shea Creek to complete what we did 2 years ago on Shea Creek Road. From the second one is from the Forest Service sign on Hot Springs Road to the beginning of Storm Crow's property, approximately 200 feet on either side of the road. STPUD's property from Barber Road in Alpine Village to Diamond Valley Road on the Diamond Valley Ranch, the STPUD's property, and Hawkside Court. Rancho Mesa Vista on the south side of Sunrise Trail. And the one that we are most pleased with is the Washoe Tribe and the Fire Safe Council are working together for a fuels reduction project on the south side of California Street. It's an L shape, completely surrounds one side of California Street. The reduction or mastication actually of 300 feet of tribal land next to California Street. So we are pursuing all of those, and when we finally have the money in our hand, which should be the end of March, we intend to get started. The Fire Safe Council is within a month, maybe not more than 2, of submitting its application to Firewise to be the representative for 2 Firewise communities, Rancho Mesa Vista and Markley Village. That's it.
Great, you guys have a lot going on. Thanks.
Yes, we do.
Okay, anything else? Seeing nothing, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 12th at 1:30. And that will also be hybrid?
Yes, yeah, we're gonna keep hybrid, just because it provides a little bit of flexibility with some of our folks out of the region.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, all.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye, puppy.
It's not mine. I'm at a friend's house. It's their
Maybe-
little Yorkie.
Maybe not yet, but maybe it might be.
No. He lives here.
See you later, Terry.
Okay, see you, bye.
Bye.